No one was prepared for what happened that evening on The View. The studio, buzzing with the hum of cameras and the anticipation of a live audience, awaited the arrival of Adam Sandler, a beloved figure known for his laid-back charisma and comedic talent. He came to promote his new film, a family comedy poised to be another hit. But what started as a typical talk show interview quickly turned into a moment that went down in television history. This is a story about dignity, the boundaries of humor, and the strength to stay true to oneself, and it begins right now. The studio lights flooded the View set, reflecting off the vibrant red and white decor. The audience buzzed with excitement, erupting into applause as soon as Whoopi Goldberg announced the guest. Adam Sandler! He stepped onto the stage with his signature grin, dressed in his usual casual style, sneakers, jeans, and a bright shirt that looked like he'd just come from a basketball court. His movements were relaxed, but his eyes sparkled with energy as he waved to the crowd, prompting a roar of cheers. Adam, welcome! Whoopi greeted warmly, though her voice carried a hint of intrigue that always accompanied her introductions. Beside her sat the other co-hosts, Sarah Haynes, Sunny Hostin, and of course, Joy Behar, whose eyes glinted with anticipation. Joy, known for her sharp tongue and provocative questions, clutched a sheet of notes, her smile a touch wider than usual. Adam settled into the guest chair, leaning back with easy confidence. The audience continued to clap, some shouting out the names of his classic hits. Billy Madison! Happy Gilmore! He laughed, joking with the crowd. What, were you all watching my movies on VHS last night? The studio erupted in laughter, and the atmosphere felt friendly, almost festive. But backstage, the producers were already sensing tension. One, wearing a headset and clutching a tablet, whispered to the director, Joy's in a mood today. I hope this doesn't get out of hand. The camera operators, their equipment humming as they focused on Adam, exchanged glances. Something in the air hinted that this episode would be anything but ordinary. So, Adam, tell us about your new movie, Whoopi began, keeping the tone light. Another comedy that'll have us laughing until we cry, right? Adam nodded, his smile genuine. Yeah, it's a family story, a bit of laughter, a bit of heart. My team and I wanted to make something that brings people together. You know, something kids and parents can laugh at together. Sarah Haynes chimed in. That's so sweet. Your movies always have this warm vibe. How do you find the balance between humor and those heartfelt moments? Well, Adam rubbed his chin. I just try to be myself. I do what feels real. I love it when people leave the theater smiling. The audience applauded, but Joy Behar, who had been silent until now, leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Adam, that all sounds very sweet, but let's be honest. Your movies, they're not exactly masterpieces, are they? Her voice dripped with sarcasm, and the studio fell silent. I mean, you make millions on these, how should I put it, frivolous comedies. Don't you think you could use your talent for something more serious? Adam raised an eyebrow but kept his cool. His smile tightened slightly. Well, Joy, I think laughter is serious business. People come to the movies to forget their problems. If I can give them an hour of joy, that's a win for me. The audience responded with light applause, but Joy wasn't backing down. But it's just entertainment, Adam. Have you ever thought about doing something with deeper meaning? Or are you just happy being the eternal king of goofy comedies? Sarah Haynes let out an awkward laugh, trying to diffuse the tension. Joy, come on, his movies bring joy to millions. Joy is good, Joy snapped. But don't you think, Adam, that you're dodging responsibility? You're a big star. Why not use your platform to talk about important issues? Politics, society, something with real impact? The studio went still. Adam sat, tilting his head slightly, his fingers gripping the armrests of his chair. Whoopi shot a quick glance at Joy, her face a mix of irritation and concern. Sunny Hostin, usually neutral, nervously shuffled papers on the desk. The audience, sensing the shift in mood, began whispering, and a few pulled out their phones to record. Adam cleared his throat, his voice steady but with a hint of firmness. Joy, I respect your opinion, But I don't think laughter is trivial. You know, I've seen how my movies help people. Parents write to me saying their kids, who are struggling with depression, laughed for the first time in months. That matters to me. Joy scoffed, her smile sharpening. Oh, Adam, that's so touching. But let's be real. You make these movies not for depressed kids but for big checks from Netflix. Doesn't it feel a bit hypocritical to talk about helping people? Her words hit like a punch. The audience gasped, some covering their mouths. Whoopi turned sharply to Joy. Joy, that's too far. Let's stick to the movie. But Joy ignored her. She leaned closer, her eyes gleaming. No, Whoopi, I want an answer. Adam, you're not a saint. All this talk about helping, it's just a nice wrapper to sell tickets, right? Or do you really think your comedies change the world? Adam clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. But he still tried to keep his composure. Joy, I'm not claiming to be a hero. I do what I do best. If you think laughter doesn't matter, maybe you're the one who doesn't get how the world works. The audience erupted in mixed reactions. Some clapped for Adam, others shouted words of support. But a few in the back rows whispered in agreement with Joy. A producer in a headset frantically signaled the camera operators to keep rolling. One operator accidentally bumped a tripod, and the faint clatter echoed in the silent studio. Sarah Haynes tried to intervene. Adam, I think Joy's just saying you have a huge influence. Maybe tell us how you see your role in Hollywood? But Joy cut her off. No, Sarah, I'm saying he's avoiding tough topics. Adam, have you ever thought about making something that makes people think, not just laugh at your pizza and dog party jokes? This time, Adam didn't respond immediately. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze darkening. The studio held its breath, waiting for his reaction. The hum of the cameras grew louder, as if amplifying the tension. Whoopi exchanged a look with Sunny, who shrugged helplessly. The producers backstage were already bracing for the worst. The View studio was frozen in tense silence, the hum of cameras and the clatter of microphones only amplifying the weight of the moment. Adam Sandler, usually relaxed and smiling, sat with a darkened gaze, his fingers tightly gripping the armrests of his chair. Joy Behar, on the other hand, looked confident, her eyes sparkling with defiance as if daring Adam to lose his cool. But what happened next shocked everyone, both in the studio and the viewers at home. This part of the story unveils the escalation of the conflict, an emotional climax, and a powerful message that left the audience divided. Adam took a deep breath, his voice low but firm when he finally spoke. Joy, do you really think laughter is something trivial? He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. You know, I get letters from people saying my movies help them through losing loved ones, divorces, illnesses. You call that frivolous? The audience erupted in applause, but Joy scoffed, leaning back in her chair. Oh, please, Adam, spare us the sentimental stories. You make movies about guys falling into pools and hitting each other with pillows. That's not therapy, it's business. Her voice rang with sarcasm, and a few audience members laughed nervously. Whoopi Goldberg cut in sharply, her tone stern. Joy, enough. Let's get back to Adam's movie. She turned to the guest with an apologetic smile. Adam, tell us what inspired this new comedy. But Joy wasn't stopping. She raised a hand, cutting Whoopi off. No, I'm not done. Adam, you keep hiding behind your humor. You're afraid to take on real responsibility. Why don't you make movies about real issues? Poverty, inequality? Or is it just easier to play the fool while the world burns? The studio gasped. Sarah Haynes covered her mouth, and Sunny Hostin, who had been silent, muttered, Joy, that's too much. But her voice was drowned out by the audience's murmurs. Some shouted words of support for Adam, while others whispered in agreement with Joy. A front-row audience member pulled out a phone to record, their hands trembling with excitement. Adam clenched his jaw, his face reddening. He slowly stood from his chair, and the studio fell deathly silent. Even Joy seemed to sense the shift, her smile faltering slightly. A producer backstage, headset on, gestured frantically, whispering, Get ready for a commercial, This is spiraling. Camera operators scrambled to follow Adam's every move, from his clenched fists to the shadow of anger in his eyes. Joy, Adam began, his voice trembling not with fear but with restrained fury. You sit here on your show thinking you can judge everyone who walks through that door. You accuse me of avoiding issues? What are you doing besides throwing insults for ratings? The audience exploded. Some cheered for Adam, others shouted, That's right, Adam! Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Adam raised a hand, stopping her. I'm not done. You want to know why I make comedies? Because the world is already full of pain. People come to me not for lectures but to forget how hard it is to be human for an hour. And if you don't get that, maybe you need to rethink what you're doing with your platform. The studio roared with applause, but Joy wasn't backing down. She stood up, her face flushed with anger. You call that a platform? She snapped. You're just a clown, Adam, hiding behind jokes to avoid responsibility. You could change the world, but instead, you make movies about golf and dog parties. Those words were the final blow. Adam froze, his eyes narrowing. He slowly turned to the audience, his voice dropping to a piercing calm. You know, I came here to talk about a movie. About something that brings joy to people. But if Joy thinks laughter is weakness, then I don't want to be part of this show. He ripped off his microphone, the plastic clattering against the floor like a gunshot. The audience gasped, some shouting, Don't go, Adam! Whoopi jumped up, reaching out. Adam, wait, let's talk! But he was already heading for the exit, his sneakers thudding loudly on the studio floor. Security, appearing near the stage, looked confused, unsure whether to stop him. Joy, still standing, shouted after him. Oh, so you're just going to run away? Typical Adam Sandler! But her voice wavered, and it was clear she'd lost control of the situation. The audience was split. Some clapped for Adam, others whispered that Joy had a point. Cameras buzzed, capturing every moment, while producers backstage panicked, shouting into headsets. Go to commercial! Now! Adam paused at the studio door, turning back to the audience. His face was calm, but his eyes burned. I'm not a hero, he said, addressing the crowd. I'm just a guy who wants people to smile. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, maybe the problem isn't with me. He walked out, and the door slammed behind him. The studio descended into chaos. The audience buzzed, some crying, others filming on their phones. Whoopi tried to restore order, her voice barely cutting through the noise. All right, we'll be back after the break, she shouted, but her words were lost in the clamor. Joy sat down, her face pale. Sarah Haynes looked at her with reproach, and Sunny Hostin quietly said, Joy, that was too much. But Joy waved her off, though her hands trembled. Backstage, producers were already discussing how this moment would go viral. One muttered, This is either going to ruin us or send ratings through the roof. In the hours that followed, clips from the episode flooded social media. The hashtag Sandler vs. Behar trended on X, and snippets of Adam's speech were quoted worldwide. Some called him a hero for defending the value of humor. Others believed Joy was right to call out his frivolity. Headlines tore between Adam Sandler humiliates Joy Behar and Joy Behar exposes the truth about Hollywood stars. This conflict sparked a broader question. Is humor truly a lesser contribution to society? Should a star use their platform only for serious issues? And was Adam right to walk out? Share your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think was right, Adam or Joy? Subscribe to stay updated on stories that make the world talk.